Okay, Amy, here we go. Taking a look at your side view. See up top here, head position looks good. You can see that below too. Your eyes are definitely out in this direction. Nice head position there. We can see that head come up for the breath over here. And down in the below water shot, you can see the head looking up in that direction, definitely. There we can see the crossover with his hand coming in this direction rather than a little more forward. And just a quick note here, because of that head lifting, we can see here the body position is much more at an angle. We'd like to see it right up on top of the water. Much more angled here. And that's all due to lifting that head. That slight little movement there. Well, it's partially due to lifting the head, or primarily due to lifting the head. The other thing that is causing that here, one thing I talked about early on in the front view is bringing this arm, extending it out before it enters the water. And you don't quite extend it all the way out, but the arm kind of goes in as a unit. What we'd like to see is, we go back here a little bit. So we look at this, here's the arm position, up like this. We'd like to see as that arm goes forward, what you do is you create a little hole in the water. I've drawn it all wrong. Okay, so there's a little hole in the water, and let me try one more time. Okay, so the arm comes forward, and then finally forward here, and the hand enters into this and creates this hole in the water. So the fingers first, followed by the hand, and then next the wrist is going to go through that same hole in the water, then your forearm, then your elbow, then your upper arm, all of it coming through this hole that you punch through the water with your fingertips, and then extending out underneath the water, rather than, as we see here, extending as much as you extend because you keep that elbow bent. It's not fully extended, but it's fully out above the water here, and then it goes into the water, the entire arm as a unit, rather than fingertips followed by wrist, followed by forearm, followed by elbow, followed by bicep, followed by shoulder. You see it right there, all going down as a single unit, rather than entering one piece at a time and then the rest of the arm following through. That extension of the arm, whenever you extend something out in front of the body, what that causes, so the arm extended out above the water in front of your head, causes the feet to fall here. The other thing that causes the feet to fall is the head coming up. So anything above water in the front of the body causes below water the back end of the body to drop. So these two things, this arm and the head position, are causing those legs to drop, which is definitely not near as efficient. Because the legs drop, um, we can see here what you're doing to counteract those legs dropping, to try to keep your body up on top of the water. What we'd like to see here is this arm enters the water, and once again here we can see you've got the upper arm in underwater here as well as the hand. So the whole arm entering as one instead of piece by piece like we discussed. What we'd like to see here is that arm extend out underneath the water, and then essentially you hold that arm there while this right arm comes out of the water and then comes up around over the top for recovery, and then a little bit before the right arm starts to enter the water, then we're going to pull back with the left arm. But what we see here, because your body on the back end is starting to sink, one thing you can do to counteract that is to push down with this hand. So instead of holding it out there like we'd like to, extending it out and holding it there, what's going to happen is you're going to push straight down with it. There it goes, pushing down. All that downward pushing movement all the way to here, you're still pushing down at that point. All of this is pushing downward instead of pulling backwards. The pushing down does help to get, pushing down here with the hand does help to move the lower body up, the hips and legs up, but it does nothing to propel you forward. We'd like to see all the motion, all the effort that you use, all the energy you use with this arm go towards pushing you forward, or pulling you forward as the case may be. But because you've lost balance and your body's at that steep angle, your hands have to push downward. And we see the same thing happening with this arm. First off, it's out here, and we see it pushing straight down. Now this one starts to pull a little earlier. Somewhere in here, it actually starts to, it goes from pushing mode to actually pulling that body forward. The reason that this one's able to push a little bit earlier, or pull a little bit earlier, is because your head's in a good position here. Your body is no longer sinking because you've gotten your head back in a good position. So, the head position and then the arms, how they enter the water and where they enter the water, not crossing over, and enter hand first, then wrist, then forearm, then elbow. See, that one was not bad, that last one. That's kind of what we want to see. We see right here, the hand has entered the water right there, and as we go forward slowly, it's like you're almost like, well, the camera's moving, but essentially this arm is finding that hole, and then the rest of the arm follows it through. That's pretty close. That was a good entry. Unfortunately, you still had the balance problem, so the hand still pushed down. But as you can see, was this not a breath? No, it was a breath. As you can see here, we're starting to pull a little bit earlier. That last one we showed with your left arm, that arm was all the way down here before you started pulling. Here, we can see right now you're starting to do a little pulling. So, talked about a couple things here. Head position, when you come up to take a breath, we want you to rotate your head sideways and not raise it up. Here's a beautiful view of that. What we should see is, rather than the water line being down here, we should see that water line much more like this, so that all of this part right here is underwater. So, rotate your head. That's the very first and most important thing. If you can start rotating your head, what you'll see is, instead of the body line being like this, it'll be much more horizontal. That's first. The second thing is arm entry. I want you to, like you're doing here, enter first with your fingertips, and let that hand, that entire arm, follow through that hole. That was another good entry. Sometimes you do get that good entry, sometimes you don't. But definitely we don't want you extending that arm out in front of your body above water. We want to get it in the water near your head and then extend it out underneath the water. And then the final thing is holding that arm out there. And once you get your balance, once you get that head position correct, where your body's not in this position, this arm won't have to push down to get those knees back up, to get those hips back up on the water. So 3 things we talked about there: head position, arm entry into the water, and then extension out, and holding that in a front, what we call a front quadrant swimming. The 3 drills that will be really important for you to correct these issues are side kick, or actually I'm going to say 4 drills. Side kick, and these are the order of importance, or the order that you should master the drill before really spending a lot of time on the other drills. So side kick first. Once you can get that, doing that properly and efficiently, then go to single switch followed by triple switch, and finally fist drill will be the 4 drills that will really help you change those positions, get that body up on top of the water. Like here you go, you've gotten back closer to the top of the water as compared to here, where we see this position. As you move forward a little, well, it does stay kind of in that position. So doing those drills, correcting those 3 flaws that we talked about, will definitely go a long way to getting your body up in a good position and making you a more efficient, faster swimmer. So swimming should be both faster, more enjoyable, more relaxed for you. Good job.